Good morning and a huge welcome to all of those who are joining us today's webinar called Staying Safe in Hotels, which is kindly sponsored by EasyJet. Just to introduce myself, my name is Erica and I am the Operations Manager here at Maiden Voyage. My role today is very simple, and that is to facilitate this webinar for you all. And of course, Carolyn, our founder and CEO, will be your expert speaker today, and she's looking forward to speaking with you very soon and sharing some top tips and advice. A little intro into Maiden Voyage for you. We are all about making business travel safe and social for female business travellers. Statistics show that 1 in 4 women have experienced some form of harassment whilst travelling on business, and as much as 79% say they wouldn't know what to do should something happen to them. We help businesses fulfil their duty of care to their travellers, and we educate the travellers on the possible risks to help mitigate them. After all, you don't know what you don't know. We do this through delivering female traveller safety training, which can also be gender generic. We do this through classroom and e-learning. We have corporate membership. We also do a number of hotel inspections, which Carolyn will cover, whereby we provide those that have passed to our corporate partners, and also travel wellbeing webinars, which today is one of those, which are generic to both men and women. Based on our feedback from our 12,000 strong community, in addition to today's webinar on hotel safety, we will also be delivering webinars on staying fit and healthy whilst on the road, how to make the most of business and leisure travel, and of course staying safe, also known as leisure travel, and also tackling the threat of terrorism, something that is probably at the forefront of many of our minds nowadays. Each of these webinars will be delivered by industry experts, and I will be sending details to you about these following this session. So a little bit of housekeeping for you before I introduce you to Carolyn. This webinar will last an hour. It is being recorded, and a copy of this recording will be sent to you following this session and will be available for a limited amount of time. Slides are copyright of Maiden Voyage, and also there'll be a few polls released throughout the session to gain some insights into you as business travellers of today. Everyone's different and had a multitude of different experiences, so I would encourage you to ask any questions. You can do this by simply using your control panel and writing the question in the question box and submitting it. If you would like to remain anonymous, please state this in the text box. So I know that you're all super busy, but please do allow yourself this hour to invest in you in the quest to become your best travel self. So let's move on. Having won numerous awards, Maiden Voyage has been widely featured in the international press, including the BBC, The Economist and The Guardian. Carolyn is a regular speaker on the international speaker circuit on the subject of female and LGBT business traveller safety, and represents women travellers on the GBTA risk committee. She also gets feedback from so many travellers around the world from our community, and as such has come up with the Female Guest Excellence Programme, amongst other things. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Carolyn. Carolyn, over to you.
Thank you very much, Erica. It's a pleasure to be here today. And as Erica said, we normally have industry experts speaking. So it's also quite nice for me to be able to deliver one of these webinars, because I'm absolutely, as you will see in the webinar, really passionate about hotels and hotel safety. And I think one of the things that I would like to just really press home right now is that complacency is often your biggest enemy. So as we're going through the slides, think about those times when you have stayed in a hotel, which is in some respects feels like your safe haven, your home from home, but sometimes complacency is the thing that can catch us out, particularly when we're traveling to somewhere where we've traveled to many times before. So just quickly, the agenda, I'm going to talk about our hotel accreditation, some shocking incidents that have occurred in hotels, but also, of course, we're not going to leave you with a problem without a solution. I'm going to talk to you about how you can protect yourself when staying in a hotel. We're going to be looking also at protecting your belongings, the obligations that hotels have to keep you safe. We'll have a little look at fire safety, And I'm going to also share with you some of the maiden voyage tools that we have got for hotel safety as well, and also how you can get involved, be part of our community, inspecting hotels around the world for us. And of course, you can ask questions at the end, but I would really encourage you to jump into the chat box, which is on the right-hand side, just to expand that, and do type away with any questions that you've got, and we will promise to interact with you as we go. So as I mentioned, Maiden Voyage have created what we call the female-friendly hotel brand standard. And what we do is we physically inspect hotels around the world, and we're going to be looking for certain safety features, certain well-being features, and certain comfort features, which will very much lend themselves to female travellers. And of course, at this point, I'm often asked, you know, what's the difference between male and female travellers? And the people who ask those questions, you're absolutely quite right. If we've vetted a hotel for female travellers and you are a gentleman, you're going to be thrilled by what you find behind that hotel door. So our hotel inspection is based on a number of criteria, but first and foremost, what women tell us is important to them is safety. And so what we're looking for, of course, is a well-lit main entrance. We're looking for a 24/7 manned reception. We're looking for a low-risk location, and also that the hotel rooms have 2 independent locks. Things like spy holes, for example. We like hotels that have got CCTV and maybe key card lift access. So we really are going there. We're checking the locks, we're taking photographs, so we make sure that hotels that do get our accreditation are worthy of it. So interestingly, we ran our Women in Business Travel survey a couple of years ago, and what we found is that 51% of women said that they had at some point felt vulnerable when staying in a hotel. And many experienced travellers still tell me that they put a chair, a suitcase, and in one lady's instance, a chest of drawers behind the hotel door because they didn't feel safe. And in fact, I had quite a unnerving incident in a hotel in London where I just didn't feel able to come out of that hotel again that night to get some dinner. So I know what it feels like if you are uncomfortable in a hotel. So I'm going to pass over to Erica. She's going to be just running a short poll, which we'd like to get your opinion on.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Carolyn. So the question is about when you book a hotel. So I'm going to release this poll for you now. So when booking a hotel, do you book directly, whichever one you like, or does your company insist that you book through your company or TMC, Travel Management Company? If we can just take a moment to respond to that, that would be wonderful. You can see the votes coming in. Great to see that you're all energized this morning. A few more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to close that poll now, and I'm going to share those results. So there you can see from there, Carolyn, 75% through the company or TMC. So that's great, and then 25% booked directly. So I'm going to hide that now.
Great, that's a really interesting point, because what we know is that travel management companies, or indeed employers, don't get a lot of feedback from travellers. So if you do find that you're staying in a hotel that is making you feel uncomfortable, or you're not feeling safe, or for whatever reason it's not meeting your personal requirements, do remember to feed that back to your employer or your travel management company, because you could have hotels maybe programs adjusted, or at least somebody from the company or the TMC can speak to the hotel to have things changed to meet your requirements or make you feel safer.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have another poll here. So we just want you to have a think about when you've been staying in a hotel. Have you ever had a negative, had a poor experience or negative incident, or felt safe? So I'm just going to release that for you now. Okay, if you could just take a moment for that. So obviously, as Carolyn mentioned, from our results that we had from our Women in Business Travel survey, we had 51% of women. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we've got mixed genders on here today, so it'll be interesting to see the results from everybody on here. Okay, a couple more seconds. I'm going to close that now. And there we go, Carolyn, 50%.
Interesting. So 80% of you voted, and 50% of you have had a negative incident or felt unsafe, and 50% of you haven't, which ties really well into our stat of 51%. So things haven't changed there. That's really interesting, because we are seeing a lot more high profile incidents in the press. So it's good to know that people also aren't experiencing always an incident when they stay. Thank you.
Okay, and we've got one more final poll for you. So this one, just going to launch. Hold on, bear with me. So there's a question that you can see there. Have you ever put something behind your door? So Carolyn mentioned that before. So I'm going to launch that for you now. So it could be a chair, suitcase, bin, chest of drawers, just to go extra large. That particular incident was in Turkey, actually. So yeah, just thinking back through all of it, all of your travel. Okay, fantastic. So we've got 90% of you have voted. Okay, a few more seconds, and I'm going to close that poll for you now. So 22% of people have put something behind their door, presumably because they felt the need to do so there, Carolyn.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Hopefully after today, we'll give you something that's a little bit more practical than a chest of drawers to put behind your hotel door. So thank you for telling us that.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to hand back over to you, Carolyn.
Okay, so sadly, I'm going to just share some incidents that have happened to women when staying in hotels. And I'm not at all saying that this is exclusively female, but today we are focusing on female travellers. So here we have a lady who was filmed in a shower when she was staying in a hotel, and that information or that footage was then shared on various porn sites. So really quite an unnerving experience for her. Also here, awful experience of sexual assault by a member of the hotel staff. And please bear in mind, I will be sharing specifics which are in the press, which name the hotel brand. And that doesn't mean to say that if one hotel out of a group has had an incident, that all hotels in that group are dangerous, because that's just not the case. Here we have a lady who checked into a hotel room, and rather than the obligatory welcoming message on her TV screen, she had the message, "I'm going to rape you." Again, extremely alarming. She checked out of the hotel and made her exit very swiftly, but I can imagine how traumatic that would be, because I know what I would be thinking is, there's somebody actually hiding in the room at this point. Hotel here where they had a number of cases, and these were down to the fact that the front desk had given away room keys for people's rooms that they were staying in. A very high profile case here. Erin Andrews, who works for one of the TV networks in the US, she had a stalker. He actually called the hotel ahead of her staying there and said that he was a colleague and could he have an adjoining room or the room next door, and he in the meantime wired up a camera and filmed her in a state of undress, and again published that footage on the internet. Here an horrendous incident of a woman who was gang raped after having her drink spiked in a hotel. And then finally, this is something that came out on CBS just last week. And I would urge you to have a Google for this footage, this video. It talks about where the hotel let the guests down, but also sometimes we tend to normalize these types of reports. And actually, if you sit and watch the video of the lady very bravely talking about her experience, you will be moved emotionally. But I think it will just help you to cement some of the things that you can do to keep yourself safe when staying in a hotel. So let's have a look now at what you can do to protect yourself. Here we've got a lady obviously making use of the spy hole, but things that you can do when you're planning ahead is just choosing the location of your hotel wisely. I'm a regular traveller to London. We're a small business, so we don't have high-end budgets for staying in hotels. And it could be something practical, such as staying in a hotel very close to a train station might seem like a sensible thing to do. But actually, if you're coming back late at night after a dinner, a cab probably won't want to take you for a 30-second drive. So actually, it might be better to stay away from the train station, so that if you can get a cab back to the station, then you don't have to walk down those dark streets just because somebody doesn't want to take you on a short journey. But also think about where your meetings are, think about the area. Of course, you can look at online at that, but also read the online reviews and check with your colleagues. As I see that 70% of you have to book through your TMC, then your colleagues are probably your best source of information. And of course, you can have a look on the Maiden Voyage website to see which hotels we recommend. TripAdvisor, interestingly, did start to add a badge to hotels that had sexual assaults, but the badges don't stay on for very, very long. But again, these are reported on TripAdvisor, albeit, as I say, they might not stay there for a long duration, so worth using that site as well. But when you get to the hotel, if there's something that doesn't make you feel comfortable when you're staying there, then don't be embarrassed about asking for an alternative room. Maybe you're in an annex, or you're right at the end of a corridor, or you just feel like you're in a deserted part of the hotel. It's absolutely fine to ask for another one. Likewise, one of the biggest bugbears of our travellers is having their room number announced out loud. And, people might say, well, it's not such a serious offence, is it? Nothing happened. But actually what we've seen is people who've had nuisance calls to their hotel rooms. We've actually had somebody knock at a door and use the person's name because they heard them check in. The person in the room was expecting the concierge to come with her suitcase. And in fact, this gentleman, or lack of gentleman, let himself into the room and assaulted that person who was staying there. So it is imperative that you do push back if hotels announce your room number, either at check-in or even at breakfast, or when you're trying to pay your bill after dinner. Also, a tip that I learned the hard way, ask for 2 room keys. So I had a man listen to me at a check-in. I thought I'd done it very, very discreetly, but he came to me later on. He'd obviously gleaned that I was staying at the hotel by myself and started to make inappropriate conversation with me. So again, asking for 2 room keys just gives the impression that maybe somebody else is going to be staying with you. But make sure that all the entry and exit points are safe in your room before you start to unpack, because if you do find that your balcony door or your hotel door doesn't lock in the way that you would feel comfortable or feel secure, once you're in your pajamas or whatever you sleep in, you might not want to bother gathering all your belongings up and asking for a new room. So make sure that that's pretty much the first thing you do when you get into your hotel room. Make sure also, if there's a telephone in the room, that the telephone works. And of course, keep your room locked at all times. So that second bolt that you may have on the door, make sure that that's closed as well, because of course intruders don't just come in the middle of the night, they could come in at any point. And I always make a point of putting the do not disturb sign out when I get into the room, so that people aren't busy bothering me. But also, I never put my please clean my room sign out again, because that lets people know that your room is unoccupied. Use a spy hole before opening the door. You wouldn't answer your own door at home maybe at 10 or 11 o'clock at night to a stranger. So just remember that a hotel is a public place, and check before you answer the door who's actually there. And again, sometimes we see a book in the spa or the gym where you need to write your room number down. I'm assuming now, because of the new GDPR legislation, that's going to be less of an issue. But again, I'm not one to write down my name and room number and let other people publicly know where I'm staying within the hotel. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if you do have a negative incident, please do share that information with your employer or your travel booker. Now, as we saw, some really horrific incidents where people had been sexually assaulted in hotel rooms, and we're talking about robberies as well in this case, so hotel intruders. So how can you avoid them? I'm going to pass over to Erica to do another poll for us.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Carolyn. Right, okay, so you can see the question on the screen there. So just thinking back, have you ever had an intruder into your hotel bedroom? Or have you ever had someone enter your room, perhaps when your room has been double allocated, which actually is, we hear feedback quite a lot from that, don't we, Carolyn?
Yes, we do.
So I'm just going to launch that for you now. Actually, you've got a story about someone coming in, haven't you? And they happened to be, they went in, didn't they? And they got themselves ready, had a bath, and then someone walked in on them when they were in the bath, didn't they?
That's right, but unfortunately for both people concerned, the man who walked into the room was actually the manager of the lady who was in the bath, so very embarrassing for the pair of them.
Absolutely. Right, I'm going to close that now. So 22%, so almost 1 in 4 people have had that happen to them, Carolyn.
Okay, and in most cases, of course, these won't be sinister. They'll be more likely to be embarrassing or uncomfortable. We've all had the story of the naked man on the bed when somebody's checked into a hotel room. But again, if you are the person in the room, just by using that double lock, hopefully nobody's going to be able to get in with a key card. Okay, so double allocating rooms, it is actually sadly a common occurrence. Hotels will do it, obviously not intentionally, but there just may well be a glitch in the booking system. So you know, be aware that that does happen, as I've mentioned. Okay, so double locking doors, as I talked about, applying those double locks is really essential, but not all hotels are created equal, and not all hotels have double locks. It may be something that's in your hotel program that you ask for as part of the RFP process, or it may not be. And in some parts of the world, and quite scarily actually, in some parts of South Africa, it's not very common to have double locks on the hotel doors. So let's just go back to another poll for you there.
Okay, so I just need you to cast your mind back over the last 3 stays in hotels for business and just have a think. Did they have those secondary independent locks, so the bolt that went across? So the answers are yes, all 3 of them, 2 of them, 1 of them, or none of them. As Carolyn intimated, it will probably depend on whereabouts that you were staying in the world, as there are obviously varying levels of safety. Okay, so we've got 56% of you have voted. Great, thank you very much. The votes are coming in. A few more seconds. Okay, I'm going to close that vote for you now. Okay, I'm going to show it on the screen. So 29% said all 3 of them, which is great.
Great, yeah.
57% said 2 of them. 14% said just the 1 of them.
That's good. So you're obviously all staying in quite secure hotels. Of the hotels that we inspect, only 50% have got those double locks. So we've got a higher average here, so that's good. Okay, so what to do if you don't have a double lock? So I promised that I would furnish you with something which is slightly more practical than a chair or a chest of drawers. This little device is a door jammer. In fact, everybody who joins Maiden Voyage, they get one on their first day of employment. It looks quite bulky there, but it's actually just the size of a mobile phone. So if you haven't seen a door jammer before, I really like these devices. They're a lot stronger, more sturdy than a door wedge, which you can also obviously carry. And I have mistakenly carried mine through airport security on numerous occasions, and I still have it. So I know that so far so good that you are able to carry them on the plane. These devices retail around about $29.99, but after the follow-up, you also get access to a 10% discount as a Maiden Voyage, part of the Maiden Voyage community if you want to buy one. And these have been tested with 80 kilos thrown at the door in a sustained period of time, and it's not managed to break the door jammer. Many of you may be thinking, what about hotel fire? As you can see, there's a bend, a sort of an elbow on the outside of that device. Literally, if you just pull that, it just comes off. So a number of times I've forgotten I've had my door jammer on and I've tried to get out of the room and it's not worked. So yeah, just pull the thing off. So next, we're going to look at protecting your belongings within the hotel. So before I go into that, I just want to share my own personal story on handbag theft. Are we going to be sending a follow-up email out? Yes, so actually, I'll get Erica to share with you a video on handbag theft. So what we know is that a lot of people will use their bag to reserve their place at breakfast, and then they'll walk off to the buffet. Or numerous people have had their bags stolen at check-in. One of them was a pilot, actually, and he was overseas and he lost his pilot's bag with all his permits, so he wasn't even able to fly back, and it took a long time to get that back. Also, another lady was sat in a restaurant, a deserted restaurant, by herself. Nobody came in as far as she could see the entire time she was there. She didn't leave her table, but her bag disappeared. And in this case, it was a cleaner who'd used a mop handle to pull the bag away from under her chair. And sadly, she was carrying the tickets for a field trip for university. So the entire trip was cancelled as a result of that. So handbag theft, as we know, is a really easy crime to commit. You know, it's quite often non-violent, but if you imagine that you're overseas and in that bag you've got your your passport, your money, your mobile phone, the risk to you can absolutely increase massively. And if you think about the value of those items in your handbag, and this will be very, very revealing when you get the video later, women are often carrying tens of thousands of pounds or dollars of goods within those handbags. So that's why it's a very attractive crime to commit, and why we know that groups of organised criminals will target the more upscale hotels. But if you imagine if you're out and about and you are, say, in somewhere like China or Russia, where you maybe don't speak the language and it would be really inconvenient to get stranded, it may well be that you're so emotionally invested in those items because you know the inconvenience that's going to ensue if your bag is stolen. You may instinctively put up a fight, and that's not what you want to do, because you may well then put yourself at risk as well. So I never take a bag to breakfast. I just take a pashmina or something to put over my chair so that I know and everybody else knows that that table has been taken. So some more top tips for you. Obviously, as I mentioned, keep an eye on your bags at check-in, and don't leave your personal belongings and your phones, etc., unattended in the dining areas, or laptops for that matter. Do put your valuables in the safe, but if you are in a part of the world where actually safes are known to be compromised, then you might want to consider locking some items in your luggage with a padlock. Something else that I might do if I'm staying in an area where I'm not feeling entirely comfortable is I might leave my TV on in the room, so it just gives the impression that there's somebody else in the room at that point. And also, of course, putting the do not disturb sign on. Now, as I mentioned, hotels have also got obligations to safeguard you when you're staying there. So thinking about what I just mentioned, announcing room numbers out loud, really, really inconvenient, is a security risk. And what we know is that quite often when that happens, people are disgruntled, they're embarrassed maybe, but they tend not to challenge a hotel when they do that. So please, if you do nothing else today, please take that away and do respond to the hotels accordingly if they do it. So back to Erica, we've got another poll for you now.
Okay, that's lovely, thank you. So let's launch this. So thinking back again over the last 3 stays for business, when checking in, did any of them verbally announce your room number? So if you can have a think about that. So just yes or no on that. Okay, I'm going to close that. A few more seconds, close that vote for you now. Okay, so 78% said that yes, they did. Say their room number out loud. 22% said no.
That's interesting. Feel free, if you want to, in the chat box to tell me if you did challenge it, or if you would feel comfortable in challenging a hotel when they do announce your room number out loud. So what we know is that it's part of so many brand standards not to announce room numbers out loud, and it's quite often maybe junior members of staff, a training issue. I checked into a hotel last week where they'd got a self-service check-in machine, but one of the members of staff thought she was being helpful by coming to help me do it, and then she shouted my room number out loud, and I put my finger over my lips to say shush, and she realized straight away the error of her ways, and she offered me an alternative room. So I just feel that by that experience, she probably would be reticent to do that again, understanding that people will actually challenge that and stop doing it.
And a hotel lobby is a public area, isn't it?
Absolutely, and you never know who's listening to you or the receptionist. And as we've seen from the lady who I asked you to watch the video of, the person who assaulted her in a hotel bedroom obviously knew which room she was staying in. So yes, it is actually one of the riskiest parts of a hotel stay. So let's have a look at some of the things that the hotel can be doing. As I mentioned, having 2 independent locks on the hotel doors. It may be, as I say, that you want to push back if you have an influence over your travel program, then to have your company just check that hotels do have these locks, because as you can see, that's also the single point or the biggest single point of failure in keeping the occupants safe. Also, what we like, of course, is hotels that have got good visible security staff and CCTV. I stay quite a lot at our red carnation hotels, and when I check in, the concierges seem to know me before I've even got into the hotel, or the security people. They know who's staying there, they know who's looking out of place there, so absolutely clocking who's coming in and out of the hotel. But also thinking about room allocation. We had an incident actually of a lady who was staying in a hotel. She was on the ground floor, and it was actually a member of the hotel staff who just thought it would be really entertaining to go and look at her through a hotel window from the car park. Very unnerving for her, and yeah, heavens knows what he was thinking, but enough to really scare her. So again, thinking about where hotels are placing you, they probably shouldn't be putting lone female travellers on the ground floor or even below ground, where the room can be accessed, say, through a window or something like that at ground level. Also, we like hotels that have got key card lift access. Not many hotels do have them, and what we've found is in some hotels they have them, but that facility is actually being switched off. And there's a couple of hotels that I've inspected where you can actually get up to the bedrooms without going via reception. So I'm thinking about a hotel that we visited in Manchester where you could get off the main street into the lift and actually get up to the bedrooms. And I did a security check there, and in fact, the hotel doors were also being propped open by the housekeeper's trolleys. So I could have actually gone into a hotel room and robbed some of the belongings that were in there. I could have given, pretended that it was my hotel room. So making sure that we, if we are staying in hotels, that you can't access the rooms without at least being eyeballed in reception or checked by somebody in security. And of course, never announcing room numbers verbally. Again, with GDPR, we're seeing a lot more discretion in the dining rooms and in the public areas, potentially in the gyms as well. But we're still seeing hotels defaulting at check-in. So please do make sure that you challenge that if they're not doing that. And something else that I really like is hotels that call before delivering room service, because they might set your expectation that something's going to be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 40 minutes, but for whatever reason, room service never seems to come in the time that they've estimated. So the question is, have you got time for a quick shower? Have you got your robe on? Do you want to get undressed, or you're wanting to do something before that room service comes, or you're wanting to get changed? So I really like it when a hotel calls me and just says, so this is the kitchen, your room service is on its way. And it's a really nice extra touch. I know a number of hotels, if they know it is a lone female guest staying in the room, they will send a female member of staff to deliver that room service. And also not adopt a position of over familiarity. I was staying at a hotel in Dublin, actually, and the person who delivered my room service, whilst I'd ordered the room service in my sort of formal surname, he used my first name 7 times during the course of delivering me a cheese salad, which I just found was really uncomfortable and really over familiar. And of course, when you are in the dining room, and we know that a lot of women guests won't go to the dining room to eat, they will sit in their room and have room service. But if you do venture to the dining room, it's great if a hotel would just think about where they're sitting you. Are they maybe putting you next to a plug socket, maybe offering you some reading material, not putting you next to, a large group of noisy men? Or we've had many of our female guests been invited to join an all-male group for dinner because they felt sorry for them, and actually we're quite fine eating by ourselves and we just want to enjoy our dinner. And then outbooking. So this is an industry term. Doesn't happen very often, but outbooking is whereby a hotel, like an airline, would overbook the number of rooms on the off chance that not all guests will turn up. And if they do turn up, then they will put you into another hotel. Now, we know that some of the brands, will put you into a nicer star of hotel, and actually it might be a positive experience for you. But typically, what I do is if I'm traveling on business, is I may well arrange to have some meetings at my hotel the next morning. So it's a massive inconvenience if I've been moved to a different hotel. But we had one lady traveller who was staying at a hotel. She didn't know she'd been outbooked. She got to the hotel at 10 o'clock at night. They said that there was a problem with her room, even though other guests were still checking in. And they wanted to put her in a taxi and send her across London to another another hotel in an area where she didn't feel comfortable. And so we do understand that, you know, some hotels will outbook, they will overbook, but actually a courtesy call at least earlier in the day would have given her some choices. And then in fact, the lady was very, very assertive, and she managed to stand her ground, and she managed to stay in another room in the hotel, and another guest was outbooked rather than herself. Now, moving on to the subject of fire safety, something like this is everybody's worst nightmare, and something that we all dread. And in fact, we had a lady who's in our community tell us recently that they had 2 members of staff who were staying in a hotel that had actually set on fire when they were staying there. So let's have a look at some of the practical tips. So of course, locating your nearest fire exit. We know to do that, don't we? But do we actually do it? And so the best practice advice is to actually physically count the number of doors that you will pass to get to the fire exit. And I sometimes see people doing this, but they only do it in one direction. They always expect that the fire will break out between the lift and their hotel room. But what happens if the fire breaks out between the fire exit and your room? So you need to just make sure that you count the doors in both directions when you do that. And potentially walk that fire exit and make sure that you can get down the steps. It's not obstructed, that the door's open. I know I stayed in a hotel in Russia and the fire exit door was bolted shut, so we couldn't have got out had there been a fire at all. Locate the fire extinguisher, but of course don't attempt to use it if you don't know how to use it. And also ask for a room between the 1st and the 5th floor. And the reason for that is we've already talked about not being on the ground floor, but anything above the 5th floor means that the fire ladders may well struggle to get to you. And I have some fire concerns about staying in a hotel that doesn't actually have any windows. I don't really feel comfortable when I'm staying in one of those rooms. And then also making sure that I've got all my essentials next to me. You're more likely actually to be in a hotel where the fire alarm goes off by mistake, or somebody set it off erroneously, and then you may well find yourself stood out in the street or the car park for 2 or 3 hours whilst the entire hotel is checked. So obviously you want something warm on there, you want something on your feet. And I used to, in the olden days, before I had Maiden Voyage, just abandon my room key anywhere. But of course, if you have to exit in a rush, then when you're trying to get back into the hotel and 500 other guests are also standing in reception with in a queue to get back into the hotel room, is going to be very time consuming. So if you can grab all those things and get out the room quickly, then that's the way to do it. So it's what we might call a bug out bag. So to take in all your key essentials with you. Now, if you are trapped in your room, so if the fire is outside your bedroom, then obviously you need to let reception know as quickly as possible. What I would recommend is filling the bath, soaking the towels and placing a wet towel along the gap at the bottom of the door, and try and stay low, and then also have another wet towel over your nose and mouth so that you can get some clean air and you can breathe. And then, of course, making yourself visible to the fire crew so that they can come in and get you. So there are some of our top tips. And what I wanted to also tell you is that today's webinar, the section on hotel safety, is actually part of our wider female traveller safety training. So this is just one of the subjects that we cover during that full-day training. So let's have a look at some of the tools that you can use that are on the Maiden Voyage platform to keep yourself safe. So first of all, if you look for the certified female friendly hotel logo on our website, so hotels that we feature have passed the double lock inspection and so on. But also you may well see that on hotel websites as well. More and more organisations are actually putting this in their RFP, asking hotels if they've got the Maiden Voyage accreditation. So you can see those quite clearly listed on our website, and hopefully some of these will be in your hotel programmes, and if they're not, maybe you can get them added in as well. We also have an e-learning module on hotel safety. So if you have found the content that we've shared with you today of interest, this is something that you or your organisation might want to access. And these are 20-minute modules which can run on any device. So you can maybe use it on your way to a business trip. certainly brilliant for first-time travellers who've never stayed away in a hotel before. It just reminds you of some of the things that you've taken for granted that could catch you out. And then also you might well want to join our community of hotel inspectors. So this is what we call our crowdsourcing reviews. And so any member of the Maiden Voyage community can review hotels for us. We will still follow up, but it helps us to understand which hotels are meeting their duty of care obligations and who are excelling in terms of what women want from hotels, but also more importantly, it lets us know of hotels that are not meeting those requirements, and specifically if there are incidents, then we're more than happy to discuss that with the hotels as well. But of course, do remember to feed that back to your employers as well. So again, in the follow-up email, Erica will send you information about how you can do that. So really today, I know that I've shared some pretty scary incidents of things that have happened in hotels, but really don't be left in any doubt that I'm absolute travel junkie, and I really want to empower you, and I want to inform you, and I want to liberate you to have the most amazing trips, whether you're traveling on business or whether you're traveling for a weekend away or you are going solo around the world to enjoy yourself. I really want to give you all the things that can go wrong, but more importantly, all the things that you can do to keep yourself safe when you are traveling, so that you can have the most fantastic trips and not have to give a second thought to things that might be going wrong in a hotel, because you know that you're going to be safe. So I want to just pass back to you to see if you've got some final questions. But I want to just hand back to Erica, who will talk around the next webinars that are coming up in the series.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carolyn. If you can come up with any questions that you might have. Everybody's obviously got their own individual experiences and questions. I can see quite a few have come in already, so do get typing away. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we do have our Travel Wellbeing webinar series, which will continue throughout the rest of the year. The subjects have been chosen based on feedback from our community, so you can see what they are there. I will send you the links following on this from this webinar in my follow-up email to you. I will just put our website on the page as well, so do have a look on our website. There's plenty of top tips on there as well. And I think for now, I'm going to open up to questions. Let's have a look, see what's come in. Okay, so one for you here, Carolyn. It says, what has been your worst experience that you've had within a hotel? You personally, have you ever had a bad experience?
Well, I'm fastidious about letting a hotel know before I get there what I would like to see. And one of the things that I really dislike is adjoining rooms. And that's not so much from a security perspective, although we did have one lady who had a love letter passed to her by the next door occupant, which was quite disconcerting. But I don't like adjoining rooms because quite often the gap underneath the door is quite high, and you can hear the occupants in the room next door. So I was staying in Silicon Valley actually, and this particular hotel, the man next door was entertaining, shall we say, paid services of a lady of the night. And I could hear absolutely everything, which was really uncomfortable for me. So next time I stayed at that hotel, I let them know what had happened. I couldn't say that they really responded to my incident in the best way possible. I think they gave me a few frequent stare points or something. So I was really clear that I didn't want an adjoining room on this next stay. I also wanted a room with a bath. I didn't want to be on the ground floor. So basically they gave me a room on the ground floor without a bath with an adjoining room. I went back to reception on a number of occasions because obviously even the adjoining door room actually wasn't very, very secure. And so the lock wasn't really working. And they moved me twice, and I was starting to get very upset. As you can imagine, it's not just an 11-hour flight. I'd been on the road for about 17 hours at that point. I went back to reception. They said, right, we've definitely found you a room which has no adjoining doors. It has a bath and it's above the ground floor. And when I got into the room, it actually had not one adjoining room, it had two adjoining rooms, one on either side. And at that point, I was so frustrated. I was actually in tears in reception. I was just tired. I was mortified, and I just wanted to go to my bed. So that I won't ever stay at again.
Fair enough. And so what happened? Did you get it sorted in the end?
I eventually did get it sorted. No, actually I didn't. I had to compromise in the end. I got to a non-adjoining room with a bath which was on the ground floor, and hence that's why I will never stay at that hotel again.
Understandably. Somebody else has put here, why on earth do reception call your room number out loud?
Well, they shouldn't. I think they think they're being helpful. That's the only thing that I can think of, because they're trained, they're drilled not to do it, but they still do it. And I don't know if it's just kind of a, almost like it feels like it's a natural part of the conversation to do it. But really, they just need to write it down and circle it, and then we can be on our way.
Quite often it's their company policy to not do it.
Absolutely.
And I guess with hotels in that sort of service industry, they probably have quite a high staff turnover.
Yeah.
So that might impact on that as well.
Well, I know, Erica, you and I have had incidents where we stayed at a well-known brand which makes a big point in their public policy about announcing room numbers out loud, and I think they failed 100% of the times that we've stayed there. So yeah, do give that feedback to the hotels if they are doing it.
And I know the particular incident because you were with me that time, and actually I did push back on it because and it does feel quite uncomfortable, because you feel like you're not being rude, because you can say it in a polite way, but it's almost like you're sort of telling them that they've not done their job properly in a way.
Which they haven't.
Well, I know, but I think it's our own natural way to, you don't want to come across as rude, do you? But actually, I think one of the key things that anybody can take from this is that politeness comes secondary to your own personal safety.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think through everything that you've picked up, hopefully you've picked up some top tips from this this session today. But unless you educate on yourselves on what those potential risks are, and as you said, some of them are quite horrific examples that you've used. Unless you educate yourselves on those risks, then you can't mitigate them.
No, you can't.
So you can't bury your head in the sand. And actually, like you say, you can have a better, more thrilling experience when you're going, and whether or not that's travelling on business or leisure, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Putting those same practices in place when you go on your holiday. So I've got one final question here, Carolyn, and it says, my TMC books my hotel, and I make the assumption that my hotel is okay because of that. But is there anything more that I should do personally in addition to my TMC just giving me my hotel?
Yes, I would still do your own due diligence. I would still look at the reviews, because I used to work in corporate life as well, and we had a preferred supplier list, and we had a list of hotels on there that we could stay at, but I still took the time to read the reviews. I still took the time to look on the map to see where that place was. And actually, well-being is quite important to me as well. So I also looked to see if there's somewhere where I could continue my fitness regime whilst I was away. Was there a gym, was there a pool, or was there a park nearby that I could go for a run? So absolutely, still do your own due diligence. And if you find out that the hotel doesn't have double locking doors, or it doesn't have something that you deem is important to your personal safety, at least you can go prepared. Because we even, at Maiden Voyage, sometimes have to stay in hotels that don't have double locking doors, but we just take our door jammers with us, and it's really not a problem.
Absolutely.
I think finally, I'd just like to share something which is a campaign that I started at Maiden Voyage, because I also know in the way that our world is evolving is that we like to work with organisations which have a heart and a purpose, and who really invest in the wider community. And so if this is really important to you, we started something called Hotels for Homeless. And this is where hotels that have got old things, so maybe they're refurbing, or they are, changing supplies of toiletries or whatever, that stuff, rather than going into landfill, is actually dedicated or donated to the homeless sector. So it could be beds going into shelters, it could be beds going into people's houses where they've not had a house for a long time. So also do look out for the Hotels for Homeless campaign. You would be doing your bit for society if you are looking at those hotels, sharing their stories, and also encouraging other hotels to jump onto the Hotels for Homeless campaign as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'd just like to leave this with on the screen with our connection details. So please do connect with us on LinkedIn, social media. We're very active on there, and also sharing lots of top tips and advice, etc. And we often put on various different webinars. So please do connect with us on there. There there any more questions? So 3 people have come back and said thank you very much, Carolyn. So learned some top tips there, which is fantastic. So really pleased to hear that. Great to see that you've all been so active. I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time out to invest in yourselves, into educating yourselves. As I mentioned, I will be sending a follow-up email to today's session. And of course, if you go away, have a reflection and you think of something, we're here. Just send us an email. We'll be more than happy to help you and give you any advice whatsoever where we can. So, Carolyn, is there anything else that you would like to say before we finish off today?
I'd just like to say thank you, everybody, for staying the course. I can see that 100% of you are still on here with us, which I really, really appreciate. Please do share your stories with us. We want to hear about brilliant hotels. We want to hear about security concerns. You don't have to be a hotel inspector to share that information with us. You can contact us through any of the means here. Give us a call, drop us an email. We really want to hear about your hotel experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So thank you again. It's been a pleasure to be able to talk about my favourite subject, hotel safety.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Carolyn. Thank you to you all, and I wish you all a fantastic day. Goodbye.